Welcome back to another episode of the Unleash Your Radiance podcast. I'm your host, Lorena Christine, and I am so excited because I am joined today by a very, very special guest, joined by Helena Grace Donald, who is a money mindset expert working with women to overcome their money mindset blocks and create a life they absolutely love. And I know you guys are going to absolutely love this episode as we are going to be diving into all thing money mindset and overcoming your limiting beliefs around creating more wealth in your life. Helena, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for staying up late in order to record this podcast episode. I would be asleep right now if I were you.
Oh, no worries. I'm actually kind of up around this time anyways. It's coming close to the bedtime, but we're still working. We're still working. So amazing. Well, Helena, I always ask any of my guests that come on the podcast, we're all about the radiant living here. So I always love to ask guests is what does radiant living mean to you?
Well, when I think about radiance, I really think about that glow that you have from the inside out. I think radiance lives within us.
Yeah.
It's not something that exists in the external. I think it begins, I just imagine like literally an energy that glows out from within you. And if we tie it into abundance as well, I think it's really living from a place where you're tapped in and tuned in to your inner sense of worth and happiness and joy, and that being the starting point that you live from so that you can
Mm,
allow, well, not only allow, but magnetize even more of that towards you because you're already emanating from that place.
I love that so much. It's so beautifully put. And yeah, I 100% agree with you. For me, that's really what the radiant living means as well, is that it's like creating that from the inside out first. So then you magnetize your desires towards you. So yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. And Helen, I'd love to kind of like start with your origin story and how you got into the area of coaching women on money mindset and your own journey along with that as well. So yeah, if you want to just walk us through that a little bit, that would be amazing.
It's funny, as you were saying that, I literally had an image of me like, I don't know, 10 years ago. And I thought if you had told me then I would be like an expert in money mindset, I probably would have laughed because my relationship with money did not feel in any way confident enough to be talking to other women about money. um, so that's really in some ways how it began. It's because I really didn't have a great relationship with money. I didn't feel
Mm,
confident around money. I didn't feel confident interacting with money. And I certainly didn't feel confident speaking about money. Like I was raised in the UK. I don't know if this is the same in Canada, but like one of the two things that you really don't talk about is money and the other is sex. They're like taboo topics.
yeah.
And yet they're literally so important in life. We, interact with them on some basis like almost every day. So, yeah, I think that it really began from that place. And I started my business over 8 years, maybe more so if I really think about the timeline ago. And I was actually working a lot with women on their inner sense of self-worth. I
Mm,
had healed myself of very, very limiting body image issues. And I had written
okay.
a book about that. And I'd been on this amazing international book tour. Like I just felt like I was vibing so high, being interviewed on like Good Day Washington, flying here, flying there. It was great.
Wow.
But on the inside, like I wasn't, my bank accounts and how I felt around money weren't necessarily reflecting what it was that I was experiencing in that way. Like I
Mm,
still had a very toxic, complicated, and lack relationship with money. And so I was growing my business and I was starting to do all the things, and I had invested a large sum of money in a business coach. And I was working really hard and I was staying up really late and building landing pages and posting online and creating email sequences and just kind of wondering like, when is this going to work? Like,
yeah.
honestly, so many moments of just wanting to like bury my head and like throw my laptop out of the window. Like, why is this happening? When is it finally going to work? I'm sure so many people can relate to that feeling.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I kind of like hit my rock bottom and I was walking around the grocery store one day and I spent almost, if not more, 45 minutes picking up every item from the shelf, wondering how much it was going to cost me, putting it back, picking it back up again. One of those days where I just felt like I was being really, really stretched. And I was wondering, how long is this food going to last before I have to come back and spend even more money on food? And I got to the checkout and I went to swipe my card and I had my phone up in front of me. And after I swiped my card, my bank notifications flashed up in front of me and they told me that I was in my overdraft.
Okay.
And I was just done. I honestly was so frustrated and angry and just like, this isn't the life that I'm supposed to be living. Like, this doesn't feel congruent with who I know I am and what I really envisioned for my life. And I got back in my car and I honestly broke down into tears and I
Yeah.
just felt like angry at money. And then I had this incredible moment. I don't know why it happened in a Trader Joe's car park, but there you go. And I just realized like there are other areas of my life that are thriving. Like I had already manifested an incredible partner into my life who is now my husband.
Yeah.
I had great friendships, like incredible women around me, and I'd healed myself of how I felt within my own body. And I realized that the reason that those areas of my life were thriving is because I'd actually done the inner work around them. I'd actually focused on allowing those areas of my life to thrive. And here I was begging money to show up in my life. And yet I'd never actually spent the time and proper dedicated attention in understanding what my relationship with it was or healing my mindset around it. And so I
Mm.
actually made a commitment to myself that that was what I would then focus on. And I went on this incredible healing subconscious money mindset journey. I started understanding all of these limiting subconscious beliefs that I had no awareness around consciously that were actually keeping money away from me. It wasn't actually safe for me to allow money into my life. And I know it sounds so cliche, but honestly, it's like after that, everything just started to soar. It was like clients were coming. I was charging prices I'd never charged before. I had money flowing into my accounts. I went from honestly struggling to pay for groceries to like within, I'd say about 12 months, I was signing like a 70K contract to be a coach for a board of execs. Like it was incredible. It was just
Wow.
everything started to shift. And then I started to really implement money mindset stuff that I was learning and that I was healing and the subconscious awareness around it that I had been using when it came to self-worth. And I applied it to money for my clients and they were lapping it up. And they were like, I want more of this. And I realized that our sense of self-worth is so tied to money.
Yeah.
And I saw I saw what was happening for the women I was working with when they started to feel this shift for themselves around money. And very quickly, I kind of became like in my circle, like the money mindset expert. And I went all in on supporting women with that because I think when women feel empowered around money and really understand their relationship with it, it has a direct impact in a really positive way around their families, their communities, and obviously the world at large. So
Yeah.
that's my story.
Wow, that is such an incredible, incredible journey. Like, I really resonate how you're talking about you started as a self-worth, like with self-worth and around body image as
Mhm.
well. That's very similar to like my own story. That's got me into coaching is years ago, overcoming from an eating disorder and wanting to help other women with
Mhm.
self-worth. So I really resonate with that. And it's like interesting how we kind of take different paths down the line later, but
Mhm.
that is such an amazing journey that you realize, okay, I'm thriving in my relationship. I'm thriving in like the business aspect, but the money part is not there. And like realizing that, okay, well, I haven't done the inner work around that. And like so many of us are not taught around, like you said, like money
Mhm.
mindset and the programming we get fed, right? And it's like, it's no one's fault necessarily. It's just like what our parents went through. And, I always think too, a lot of our parents are coming from like their parents were immigrants right after the war. So like it was survival, right? So like that's what they're taught. And then that's what
Mhm.
we're taught for the most part. And like that lack mentality is something that so many of us grow up with. And then I think we're really faced with it, especially when we get into the entrepreneurship game, right? And it's like, that's when a lot of
Yeah.
those money blocks can really face us, but it applies to, of course, everyone, regardless of their job. But what were some of the like biggest blocks that you noticed were coming up along your journey that you had to work through?
Yeah. I mean, just to piggyback on that, you're absolutely right. Like we've inherited so much programming and it isn't anybody's fault. But if you even look at the relationship that our mothers would have grown up with around money and like the different even the different things that we have available to us now as
Oh,
women,
right. Yeah.
it's like so it's just such an incredible I find it fascinating when I look back and I think, okay, what was my mother's generation dealing with when it came to money? And then what was my grandmother's like
Hmm.
relationship with money, raising 7 children in Ireland and barely had enough to put food on the table. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy. And then that was the relation, that was where my mother grew up. And then, look at it, like literally in the US, a woman couldn't own a bank account in her own name until 1974. Like that
Right. That is
blows
insane.
my mind.
Yeah.
Like it's insane. And that's my mother's generation, and they were the women that were raising us. And I'm not saying that to harp on the past. I'm saying that to actually give ourselves some forgiveness and some like tender loving care, because we have just simply inherited so many of these beliefs. And so, yes, we do now live in a generation where women are billionaires. There are
Yeah.
billionaire women out there. There are women who own multi-million-dollar companies. There are women who work part-time from home and raise their families and are able to make supplemental income. There's so many different stories and things that are available to us now. But in order for us to step into our fullest potential and actually step into whatever our uniquely most abundant life is, or uniquely wealthy life is, we have to be aware of the programming that we have inherited and that has
Hmm.
been passed on to us, because we're kind of at this precipice where future generations to come, hopefully, maybe don't even understand or have awareness over the kind of beliefs that we've been carrying from past generations because of what becomes available and how we shift it. And yes, it's available to us, but I think that we almost owe it to ourselves and the future generations to actually work on healing this now, so it's not something that we continue to carry on.
Yeah.
Um, I just had to add that because I think it's just a really important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for adding that. I think that it is such an incredible piece to share as well. And it's like, you know, I was listening to a podcast the other day about someone talking about money mindset as well. And it was like, who is that like one person that decided way back when that like scarcity was a thing with money, right? That we needed to create this lack. It's like, who is that like one person that created this like
Mhm.
chain effect that is like just come down so much? And it's like, it always blows my mind too, because money is like, we invented money, right? It's like it's
I
invented
know,
by
right?
man,
Like
and then yet it causes so much scarcity or lack. And like, it's like a main issue of like in marriages and relationships and people's lives, stressors, but it can also be like such an incredible thing. And it's like it's so interesting how it's invented by man as well, but yet like
Mhm.
it's such a big impact for so many people.
Yeah.
um
We used to exchange goats.
yeah,
Or
right.
like a goat for a cow or whatever.
Yeah, which actually that would bring me in. I'll jump back to the other question I had in a second, but like that
Yeah.
would bring in where like, the basis of like money being energy, which
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can have a hard time wrapping their head around that if they're quite new to that concept as well. But like I know when I first heard about that, like years ago when I was starting getting this work, I was like, what do you mean money's energy? But like when you really think about it, it is, right? We put so much of that energy and that worth like behind it as well. Um,
Mhm.
what like do you notice that that comes up a lot in some of the women that you work with as well, or in your containers as well?
Yeah, and I mean, I would definitely tie it back to the subconscious beliefs, and we can
Yeah.
talk about what some of those are in a minute. But I do think of money as energy, but I think of it also sometimes because I think it can be hard to conceptualize that
Yeah.
sometimes. I totally
Yeah.
get that. So I actually sometimes think about it as a relationship, and actually a really powerful thing that you can do to start sort of stepping into, well, what is my current relationship with money? How is money responding to me? Is actually thinking about it in a relationship term. So if money was your lover or money is your partner right now, like right now,
Hmm.
before we talk about how you can shift it or heal it or change it, right now with how it stands and how you operate around money, how would money describe the way that you make it feel as a
Yeah.
partner, as a lover?
Yeah.
Like if I go back to the beginning when I was struggling to pay groceries, money would have said that I never spent any time with it, that I play hard to get, I push and pull all the time. I'm rude to it, I'm ungrateful towards it. Like
Yeah.
so many different elements. And I wasn't aware of it. And yet here I am, like needily begging money to show up. And no one wants to be in that kind of a relationship. So first look at how am I treating money, because that's going to then dictate how money responds to you, because money is a neutral energy. And let
Right.
me tell you, there is so much abundance in this world. Like it's infinite. There is so much available to you for you to tap into. It's how much are you willing to step into that flow of abundance? And I do believe that a lot of your beliefs will also alter and affect that. But if you just start there with, oh my gosh, here I am. I want to make more money, but I never check my accounts. I don't have spend any quality time with money, or I'm fearful around it, or I'm needy towards it. I place expectations on it. Okay, well, that's a great place to start. If you were to
Hmm.
step into a really thriving relationship with money, how would you begin showing up today differently?
Yeah, I love that so much. That's something I've brought into some of the women that I work with as well, because it's really like so powerful when you start to realize like, yeah, how would I be in a relationship with money, you know? And it's like, ooh, yeah, a lot of us can, probably say we're not in the best relationship with money,
Mhm.
right? Because there is that like that neediness or that scarcity around it. We don't want to look at our accounts, that stress when you pay for something. Like a lot of people can do that as well, right? But it's like when you can start stepping into more of that abundance, like just tonight, like being in Bali right now, on my way back, I was like most beautiful sunset, and it just like put me in my steps. I could stop, and I was just like, wow, like that is abundance. If you like, I always think like
Mm.
if you're like able to see the sunset, the sunrise, these beautiful moments, like if you're worthy of seeing that, why would you not be worthy of financial abundance as well, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Amazing. So yeah, I want to dive in. Like, what are some of the most common, I would say, like money mindset blocks that you found you struggled with the most? And then also like some of the ones that you see with like women that you work with
Mhm.
coming to you with.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, almost every woman I work with has some of these beliefs, and I certainly did myself. I can list them off and we can go into them in more
Yeah.
detail, but a big one is actually the belief that you can either have one thing or the other. So
Mm,
it's like we've subconsciously picked either or. And I see
yeah.
it show up in different ways for women.
Okay.
For me, I actually had this really deep set belief that was so emotional for me to release. And I had no idea that this was a decision that I had made until I went into the subconscious. But it was the belief that I could either have love or I could have
Mm,
wealth, like
okay.
overflow of money. And that was partly to do with the programming that I had growing up, but I just had no idea until it all clicked and it all made sense that I was actually pushing away money because I had manifested this incredible, passionate relationship into my life. And I was actually kind of keeping money at bay for us because I thought that money would take away from that love or take away from that passion.
Wow. Okay.
And I see this play out in different ways. Like, for example, I've had clients who maybe didn't have very present parents, or one parent was less present than the other, and maybe they really craved that parent's love and that parent's attention and that feeling of being worthy around them. And maybe that parent didn't know how to actually connect with them in that way or show their love. And so maybe gifts were used or money was used as a way to do that. And that child
Mm,
may have felt that disconnect. And so then what happens, and I've seen this play out with a few clients, is later on in life, maybe they have manifested a great partner and family into their lives and they're giving back to their children in a way that wasn't given to them, but actually they're not allowing the money in because they think that that would take away from the very thing that they've craved almost the entire time that they were a child.
wow.
So that's one way I've seen it play out, but I also see people play out other beliefs like I can either have happiness or I can have money, or I
Yeah.
can either feel like good about myself, like as in I can take care of my well-being, or I can have money. As in like I can either like feel at peace and calm within myself, or I can have money, meaning like maybe they've experienced burnout in their lives. And that also
Yeah.
really ties into the belief that you have to work really, really, really hard to make money. That's another really big one. I also had this one. Um, Often this comes from children that were raised in a household where, let's face it, the parents did have to work really, really hard to make money. Maybe there were sacrifices that were made. My dad had to work really, really hard to support
Yeah.
our family, and he wasn't always able to be present. He had to travel. And like now as an adult, I look back and I think, gosh, like, thanks, Dad, for doing all of the things that you had to do. I know that can't have been easy, but as a little girl, what am I feeling? I'm feeling, well, my dad isn't here.
Yeah,
Or I want
exactly.
to connect more with my father. And so I literally like subconsciously made this belief that I didn't want that kind of life, because being a mother and being a present parent and having a certain type of family life has always been my through line. It's always been so important to me. And so I actually decided, well, I'm not going to work that hard. Like, I don't want to have that kind of life. So therefore, I'm not going to be able to make enough money.
Mm,
Um, that was
okay.
a really, and also, of course, playing out the reality in some ways, because we manifest so much of like what we're reflecting back is,
Definitely.
um, I was working really hard and I was feeling more stressed and I was feeling more burnt out. But that's another one that I think a lot of women resonate with. And that can also, oh my God, so much of that can play out as them as well. When you become a mother and you are stretched for time and you are stretched for freedom, that can
Mm,
really play out as well. And that's also another one that I wouldn't say is necessarily one of the top beliefs, but a lot of women do feel like I can either be a great mother or I can make money, and they feel like, there's a lot of sacrifice around that and a lot of programming around who you have to be or what you have to do in order to be a present mother.
yeah.
um Another big one is worth. So many women
Mm,
are feeling on some subconscious level like they're not worthy. And that absolutely plays into their relationship with money, because you're essentially saying, I'm not worthy of the abundance, or I'm not worthy of the overflow, or I'm not worthy of it being easy or feeling good. So
mhm.
we make it harder for ourselves by overworking or by pushing or by forcing, or it can play out in so many different patterns, not raising your prices because you don't feel worthy, or feeling like you deserve to struggle because you're not worthy. And, we could go into so many stories of where we learn that as women. But if you just look at it as a whole, I mean, what is society teaching us from a young age about who we have to be and what we have to do in order to be worthy? And then, of course, that can play out in the family home. And that was a big one for me, mainly around my body image, was actually learning that I was worthy of feeling good about myself, and my self-worth didn't come from what my size or weight was and things like that. And that's a big one. And we think, oh, how is that directly impacting my relationship with money? But it absolutely does. And it plays out in so many different ways. And then one other big one that I would say is, it's a little bit different, but it's the belief that you're not a great money manager. So maybe
Mm,
feeling like,
okay.
I don't know how to manage money. And I maybe it's not as tied to like deep subconscious programming. Maybe it's just the fact that we haven't really been taught. And a lot of financial jargon is kind of purposely confusing to sort of keep us from understanding it or
It
feeling
is.
confident around it. Like,
Yeah.
it's I actually want all women to know that it is purposely designed for you to not feel confident around it. So give yourself a break and do not feel stupid or silly asking whatever questions you need to ask when it comes to finances. You deserve to ask those questions, and never work with anyone that makes you feel less than because you are asking those questions.
Yeah.
Like, there are resources available, there are people available. Many of the resources are free online, or books that you can read to start educating yourself around that. Because especially if you're starting your own business or you are a business owner, unfortunately or fortunately, part of that role is understanding finances. And yeah, it's probably not the reason why you went into starting a business,
Yeah.
but you are going to have to start to learn how to manage them, and at least like start until you feel confident. And then you can also start hiring people, or I'm not saying full time, but I'm just saying you can hire support when you need it to help you through tax season and how to build assets or grow assets and different things like that. Or there are apps that you can use, so many different things that are available to you, but you have to first feel confident within yourself and feel worthy of learning how to manage it. Because if you're burying your head in the sand or pushing your accounting away, then you're essentially saying to money, I don't trust myself with you, or I don't feel confident around you. So please don't flow too much my way because I wouldn't know what to do with you. So that
Mm.
is a really important factor, especially for female entrepreneurs.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. There's so many juicy things that you just shared of like where to dive into. But definitely like with the self-worth, like that's just a topic that I know will like really resonate with my audience as well, is like especially with manifestation, right? We manifest from our worth and what we feel worthy of and our beliefs, and money, love, all of that, right? What we feel worthy of receiving is so connected. So I think that's such a key point to bring up as well. And one thing that I came to mind as well is like, do you see like a lot of guilt, for instance, as well? Like thinking that like women who are creating wealth in their lives and feeling guilty for like maybe, that there's other people out, because that was a big one, right? Like I know I had that growing up. Like other people are out there struggling. Make sure you eat all the food on your plate. Like don't waste
Mhm.
anything because other people don't have what we have in a sense. And that was a big one. So I always like, I know I always felt like a bit of guilt around like earning more because I felt like, oh, well, other people should have that as well. So that was, do you
Mm.
find that comes up a lot with women who are like really trying to maybe scale to those higher level months, and then like that guilt might come in also?
Absolutely. Guilt is a big one. And I was
Yeah.
raised in like my family history is Irish Catholic and it
Mm,
is like filled with guilt. Um, yes, absolutely. And I think two of the biggest energy blockers when it comes to abundance is guilt and
yeah.
shame,
Yeah.
like massive ones. And it's funny because I don't know, you tell me what you think about this, but do men feel guilty about having more money? I don't know, or like a sense of over, like I've never heard a man, at
I
least
don't
in
think
my
so.
world,
Yeah. I
talk
mean,
about it in that
maybe
way.
some, but I haven't really come
Yeah.
across that either as well. No.
Yeah. So I think in some ways it also ties into like the programming we have as women of who we have to be and what we have to do. And this
Yeah.
almost like don't shine too brightly, don't get too big.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah.
Wanting to keep small, like just where it feels safe.
Yes.
That can definitely be a big one. I know, I was raised in an all girls school and definitely was taught it's not safe to shine too brightly. And that would feel really scary to step out and like let myself be seen. And I had to work through that for sure, especially like becoming an online entrepreneur. But guilt, absolutely. And I also see it, interestingly enough, with some of my clients who actually have this feeling of guilt outshining their parents, that there's
Yes.
this like really strong tie or emotional tie to either what their parents had to do in order to raise them or what their parents had to sacrifice, or um, even a need for their parents' approval, and this feeling of who, like, it's not safe for me to get bigger than they were, or I will be
Yeah.
judged,
Okay.
or I won't be accepted, or I'll make them feel bad. Especially like, who am I to work less or make that money more easily than they had to work or they had to sacrifice in order to support us? And so they actually keep themselves small. And honestly, I mean, I've worked with clients, there are some parents who don't want their children to shine more brightly than that they are. And that can really create this dynamic and be a really strong tie that causes some of my clients to want to stay smaller. But obviously, when we heal that and we shift that and we bring awareness to that, it starts to feel safe in the nervous system to step out of that.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that being a thing. And like, I can imagine if, of course, if like parents are, feeling like they're struggling and they did so much and sacrificing to raise a family, and then they see their child like going on to be super successful, but again, by like working more, it may be like seeming easy on the outside. And it's like, I could see how that would make them maybe feel like they didn't do a good enough job as a parent, or like in that sense. So yeah, I've heard that from people before. And I remember reading an article about that. And it's like, I can see how it would create these uncomfortable dynamics. So subconsciously, women might be holding themselves back from that because they want to avoid that at all costs and not like
Mhm.
disappoint or feel like a burden, or, cause anyone hurt,
Mhm.
which again
Mhm.
goes back to the programming that we are fed as women. Like, don't be too seen, don't be too much, like be nice, don't make someone else feel bad, like, and always like
Yeah.
overgive for others before yourself. And
Yeah.
It's such toxic programming in that sense because it holds us back so
Mhm.
much from truly thriving. I love though that like I do see the shifting so much, and it's so incredible seeing so many successful female entrepreneurs like in the space, like doing so well and really making that like the new norm. So that's incredible. And obviously, you're an incredible impact to that world as well by helping empower women to step into claiming their worth and claiming more financial abundance as well. What would be like if someone was really just starting on this journey and they're like, okay, because I think I know for myself, I didn't realize I had so much money mindset blocks until I really started in entrepreneurship, along with a whole host of other mindset blocks. Because I think
Mm.
entrepreneurship definitely brings up every limiting belief, every insecurity we've had, right? The fear of being seen, showing up, judgment, all of that. But what would be like the place you'd say to like start if someone was like really starting to dive into this work, realizing they had money blocks?
It's a great question. And I just want to add, like, and I say this with so much love, like, it's a journey and be gentle on yourself
Yeah.
and expect that new stuff will come up at every level. And that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with you. And you're not trying to fix yourself. You're just trying to evolve and grow.
Yeah.
I'm a money mindset coach. I'm an expert in this. And that's not to say that I don't ever have money mindset blocks. I do. Like, I come up
Yeah.
against stuff as well. And gosh, I became a mother last year. Gosh, like changes everything and brings up a whole new host of stuff. So don't like think of it as I'm going to do this and then I'm going to be fixed and I need to fix myself right now. Like think of it as a process and a
Mm.
gift that you're giving yourself. Um I always hesitate when I'm about to say this, but I love affirmations and I love mantras and I love vision boards and I love all of those manifestation techniques and tools. But I was doing all of those things and I wasn't getting the results that I wanted or needed. And the reason is that a lot of that can almost be like putting a band-aid on a wound without actually healing the wound itself.
I just did an
And
Instagram post on this the other day about affirmations won't shift your reality, but here's what, well, yes. Oh my gosh, absolutely.
yes,
So resonate with this. Yeah.
yes, exactly. And so those are all, when I think of those, I think of them as like the sprinkles and the cherry and the icing on the cake. We have to first
Yeah.
like make a really delicious cake to be able to put those on. So first, my invitation is to really go deeper and really look at the subconscious and start bringing awareness to what your actual programming is. Um,
Hmm.
I highly recommend working with a coach who can support you in going into the subconscious because there's only so far we can almost take ourselves. And sometimes you just need that support and then someone who's an expert at leading you back to the root of
Yeah.
where these beliefs were first formed. And I use a tool called matrix reimprinting that's incredible. And what I love about it is because it actually helps you bring awareness to exactly where the belief was formed. And that's like a
Mm.
light bulb that goes off within you that says, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've been, or isn't it fascinating that I've been carrying this belief from so and so saying this to me at this exact moment. And I'm still believing this as an adult. Wow. Okay. Now I get to shift this. Now I get to heal that part of myself. Now I get to release that. And just love that tool and the ability to do that. But
Mm.
someplace you can also begin with yourself is I actually really love journaling. It's so simple, but it can be
Yes,
so
it
powerful.
really is.
Like I have a set of journal prompts that I can give the link to you to share with people.
That would be incredible.
It's yeah, like asking yourself, okay, like what did my parents feel when they were talking about money? What
Yeah.
was the energy like in the household when money was being discussed? Was one parent more empowered? Was one parent more disempowered? What did I decide about money as just a little girl? Thinking about if none of that programming existed and I was to rewrite what my money story is, what would that money story look like? Just
Yeah.
letting that pen and paper really flow. And when you allow that and you don't like put expectations on it, you'll be surprised. Sometimes I just like suddenly start crying when I'm journaling. I'm like, oh, there it is. Like there's that thing or there's that feeling or belief that I didn't know that I was holding on to. So give yourself the space to do that. I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. Journaling is it's such a simple, this is like with a lot of these tools, which I absolutely love, they can be so simple, but yet they're so profound. Like journaling is
Mhm.
incredible for that, for finding those blocks. And like I said, I loved what you said about the affirmations because it is, right? It's almost like it is putting on the band-aid without getting to the root cause. So when you can start getting to
Mhm.
the root cause and where it's like, okay, well now I can start to like then do the healing work around to like start to really, make that shift. So that's incredible that you shared that. And I guess what would be like some of your programs that you have on at the moment, or if someone were interested to work with you, what do you have on at the moment?
Great question. I have a few different things available. I'm actually going to be very soon opening doors to my signature program.
Yeah.
It is a 12-step program. It supports you in literally going through step by step healing the subconscious beliefs that you specifically, I'm not talking even generally, like you
Mm,
specifically are holding on to. And it's my signature method. And it really like it takes you through a three-step process, like three phases during the program. And the first one is awareness. So really getting to the root of what your specific money programming is, what your subconscious beliefs are. We then release those beliefs. And then the third step is completely rewriting that story and stepping into a new level of abundance. So watch out for that. You can follow me at I am Helena Grace, or I can drop you the link to the wait list for that if that
amazing.
supports
Yeah,
your
I'll definitely share it in
people.
the show notes.
Really accessible way to access the deeper subconscious work. I also work one-to-one with my clients. I take a handful of one-to-one clients at one time, and it's a 6-month container, and it's so beautiful. And I love my clients. I just feel so honored that they pick me to support them through this. And obviously, we can go really deep into the subconscious
Mhm.
work during that, and also get really clear on the kind of business and life and career that you want to design from that aligned and authentic place. And then I think you may have even taken some of them. I have got master classes. I think the most accessible product I have is like a $47 masterclass that helps you understand what your early money paradigm is. So it really brings awareness to what your early childhood programming was around money and how to shift that. So I've got a whole host of things, but I would say like those are three options at three different levels that you can really dive into.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, I'll drop the links in any of the show notes. Helena, I would say like what would be so if like you were to give a piece of advice around someone who's like a woman who's like ready to start living their most abundant life and call in more money and manifest more money into their life, like what would be a piece of advice you'd
Mm.
give them?
This is really ringing true to me in my life now more so than ever. And obviously, motherhood has deepened that in the season of life that I'm in. But my message on my heart is begin from enoughness. You
Yes.
are already enough. You are enough right here, right now. And the most powerful thing that you can do to step into attracting more abundance is actually begin from that abundant place within yourself. So decide now you are enough. Look at all of the ways that you already are enough. Find enoughness with where you are right here, right now, and watch as a result how things start to flow because you're no longer placing the expectation on money to give you a feeling of enoughness or to
Love that.
complete something that is not already within yourself. Because money, at the end of the day, actually can't give you that feeling if that's what you're craving. So you might as well begin now and you'll feel much happier and much more empowered in the process.
Oh, I love that. That's such a beautiful, beautiful piece of advice. Cause yeah, like that inner it's that inner radiance. Like I said, I was speaking about that
Mhm.
abundance starts from within. So such a beautiful piece of advice. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything else before we finish up this episode that you want to share with the listeners?
No, I think that's really it. I also have a podcast where we talk a lot about this. It's called the Girl Unfiltered Podcast, and we deep dive into lots of money mindset topics. So that would also be a great way, I guess, to start. Again, super accessible, and we'll start helping you really bring awareness to some of these beliefs.
Amazing. And I can vouch it's an incredible podcast. I've definitely listened to a few
Thank you.
episodes before. Well, thank you so much. It's been such an amazing, amazing pleasure to have you on the podcast. And I know, like I said, the listeners are going to get so much incredible takeaways from this.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks.